and then we'll get into the lesson I prepared. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray that this time and this message, that you'll just help me to deliver it. So the verse that I wanted to look at first is, well, the title of the message first is basically the verse, Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. We can trust God in His sovereign counsel that He is good, recognizably good. And that can be really hard to hear for a lot of people, because in this life, bad things happen to us. A lot of bad things. Abuse, neglect, tragedy. So many things can happen to us. And that can be really hard to hear, that God in His sovereignty is good. How can He be in control and at the same time good if bad things are happening? You see, I live on my grandfather's farm that I grew up at. We built a manufactured home on there, and that's where my parents and me lived. And my grandparents lived in the old farmhouse for a really long time. And when my grandparents died, we remodeled the farmhouse and moved there, right next door. And the old house became basically a storage shed. So every year, during autumn, we go and we get all the autumn decorations from next door and we bring them over to our home. And then Christmas comes and we take all the fall decorations back and bring all the Christmas decorations over. Anyway, that's a long, fleshed out story just to tell you, my mom has this little town, little village filled with little figurines of people. And you see there's like a train and there's a theater and there's a pond with a park and a lake, and there's all these little people who are going up carousels and all kinds of different things around there. And my little cousin, who my mom babysits, Sawyer, he's 3 years old, he decides that he wanted to play with this, with these little people. And so my mom comes over and he's standing there and all the people are knocked over next to each other. And she's like, "What happened, Sawyer?" And he said, they had a big fight. And I got to call the ambulance so they can stay not dead. God doesn't drive an ambulance. He doesn't show up after the mess and come to clean up the pieces. No. God is right there in the mess. God is like a surgeon. He wounds us and He allows things to hurt us. God is at work in the mess, and He's able to heal us and stitch us up. He's the great physician. God allows and causes things to happen to us, but we can trust in the end He will work all things together for our good and for His glory. He just wants us to trust Him, that He can create something beautiful out of a mess. Something even more beautiful than before the mess. Trials are intended to make us think, to wean us from the world, to send us to the Bible, to drive us to our knees. J.C. Ryle. He allows and causes things to happen to us, to drive us to our knees, to drive us to Him. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. Look at the book of Job, for instance. This is an example of God allowing the adversary, the Satan is the word it uses, Satan. He allows Satan to inflict evil on someone faithful and considered righteous in his day. Job suffers and he gets into a huge mess. But God is weaving a tapestry of redemption from that mess. Job asked God, why? Why did this happen? His friends said that he sinned, that he did something wrong. and maybe he's being punished. But that's not what it was. And Job knew he wasn't guiltless of sin, but he knew he didn't do anything wrong to earn this type of suffering. He didn't earn it. And he pleaded with God, and he's like, he didn't ever curse God, but he asked God, why? That was his question. Why? And God responded, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? God put Job in his place. There didn't need to be a why. God was using what Satan intended for evil to make something even more beautiful. And God wanted Job to turn and trust him even in the midst of tragedy. Even in the midst of tragedy, God is still good, and he will work together this mess for his servant's good. In the end, God restored Job with double what he had before. God showed him how faithful he truly is to his children, and that he can redeem even the biggest messes. He wounds us so we trust in his goodness, faithfulness, and love, and that we will worship him for who he is, what he is doing, and what he will do in the future. Love God not because of your circumstances, but because he is God, and he is good, and he wants what is good and best for us. God weaves everything together for good for his children. The good in this context does not refer to earthly comfort, but conformity to Jesus Christ and a closer relationship with God, bearing good fruits for the